Welcome back to the Automation Podcast. Shawn Tierney here from Insights in Automation. I want to thank you for tuning back in this week. In this episode, I sit down with Adam Cumick from Synergy Logic to look at their Modbus I/O and also take a look at a new product they have coming out. It's a Raspberry Pi-based OpenPLC controller, and I think you guys will find this very interesting. But before we jump into that, I do want to thank Synergy Logic for sponsoring this episode, underwriting our costs so we can release it to you completely ad-free. And I also want to thank all of our members and remind you that there is a new episode of the members only edition of the Automation Show talking about my trip to automate. So if you're a member, check that out. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into this episode of the Automation Podcast and learn all about Synergy Logic. Adam, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. I'm looking forward to learning about your company and your products. Before we get to any of that, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, I'm Adam Cumick. I work at Synergy Logic. We are an industrial controls design and manufacturer. So we make all sorts of automation technology and hardware and put it out there for you guys to use.
That's awesome. And we're going to talk about some great products, but tell us a little bit about your company.
So we are a full design service. So you can come to us with any sort of custom hardware design you might need, or you can explore off-the-shelf products. So some of those we'll talk about a little bit today. So we're located in Newport Richey, Florida. So we do all of our design on site, and we have a couple contract manufacturers we work with for actually making the products. But all the final testing and assembly is done in-house at Synergy Logic site in Newport Richey.
That's awesome. Great. And it was great meeting you and meeting some of your colleagues over at the ISA show in Tampa. That was really cool. And I'm glad you guys were able to come on. And let me just turn it back to you. Let's talk about some of these unique products that you have that are available to people today.
Yeah, definitely. So a couple things I want to cover today. First off is going to be the SLM-MX. It's part of our SLM controls line, which are slim modules. Can pull up the little feed here for you guys. So you'll see here we have a SLM-MX coupler. So that's talking Modbus TCP. And we have a couple I/O modules stacked on here. So right here, I have a little digital input simulator module. So just toggle switches and then a relay output. And we have all flavors of these modules in this package. So everything from 4 to 20 milliamp analog, voltage, AC inputs and outputs, kind of whatever you would expect to find in an industrial system. And you can stack up to 8 of these on a single coupler. So if you need a lot of density, maybe a lot of analog, maybe a lot of thermocouples, it's a great platform to get in there and keep your configuration simple because it's just one node at that point.
Okay, so for the audio audience, we have this coupler at the beginning. Then we have a SIM module with all the toggle switches. And then we have another module there, which is that a input or output?
So in our nomenclature here, anything blue is going to be an input and anything red is an output.
Oh, okay, great. So that's an output module. And so how do these connect together? Do they snap together? I know a lot of products on the market snap together. Some of them have a bus that you have to latch in. How do these actually connect together?
I can show you. So all of these have these little connectors on the side.
Okay,
And
great.
they just slide together nice and easy. And you have your clips to secure them, so now they won't come apart.
Nice.
All there. And then on the back, you have these little levers to secure to the DIN rail. So
yep. It looks like it's panel mountable as well.
Yep, we have the screw holes there if you want to put it on a panel, on the DIN rail clips, and the tops there. Yep. So you got all the options you need.
That's excellent. It looks like a nice system. Now, what type of couplers do you have available for that?
So right now we have the 2 products I have on the feed here. So we have the SLM-MX, which does Modbus TCP.
Okay.
And then we have our upcoming SLM-RP4, which is based on our Raspberry Pi 4 platform. This guy is in a aluminum case, DIN rail mountable, panel mountable like you'd expect. But that lets you connect to a ton of different protocols or even run control on it. So it's a bit of a hybrid between your typical edge device and then a full control platform like a PLC.
Now with the Raspberry Pi, is there like any industrialization that goes on with that? Like, are we thinking this is the $50 one I buy from Amazon, or is this a more industrial version of it?
No, this is definitely more industrial. It will be
Okay.
very familiar if you're used to using the one off Amazon. All that's still available to you, but we put in work to make sure it takes a 24-volt supply. It
Okay.
is UL listed. It is CE tested, so it's very
Perfect.
good in difficult EMC environments, and it will let you run fanless all the way up to 55 degrees C.
Okay, great. That's very important to know. So there's a lot of benchmarks in industrial automation, 55, 60, 65. These are the numbers we got to know because we know what we buy and put in our enclosures. And so a lot of the computing products are in that 50 to 55 range.
Yeah.
And you're saying it fanless up to 55.
Yeah, we have a very hefty aluminum heatsink on there. We did a lot of testing in our temperature chamber, making sure this thing can crank without any issue at that full temperature. And we're doing that test under a lot of synthetic loads as well. So we're really making sure that if you're pushing this thing, you're using it, it still will work even in that difficult temperature range.
Now, as far as what this Raspberry Pi can do, right? So I'm sure somebody out there, they want to write some custom script. They're going to love that. But what if you have your classic controls engineer who wants to use, IEC 61131-3? What do you have any options for that user?
Yeah, so that's what I love about open platforms like the Raspberry Pi is there's always something out there that's going to work great for whoever needs it because someone's has already needed it and they've already done it.
Yeah.
So what we can even do here is I use OpenPLC a lot with my Pi.
Okay.
It is a fully 61131 compliant IDE. So if you go in here, that means we can do things like our uh, function block diagram, instruction list, even ladder logic,
Mhm.
structured text, and then even getting into some other languages now on this sort of platform where you can do Python code or C++.
Uh, right in the same IDE. So those for those who are listening and not watching, those routines are right alongside your classic IEC 61131. I can see that this IDE has really developed since we had OpenPLC on the show, I think 3 or 4 years ago. So it looks really well designed and well. And I'm assuming are we looking at the standard OpenPLC development environment?
Yeah, so Autonomy is the company that develops OpenPLC, and this last year they've done a huge push to modernize their editor into this new V4 version, which
Okay.
includes all of this great language support and new things like the Python and C++, and even some of the device drivers, like we're going to get into in a bit here on the demo.
Okay, great. Yeah, it looks like I mean, for any school out there who's struggling for funds, what a great way to learn your IEC 61131. Personally, I would prefer to have a PLC from, that programs, but if you can't afford a PLC and you're just going to go buy some inexpensive pies, and we see this a lot overseas, especially in developing nations where, a $200 PLC is their entire budget for the year, right? So they can go
Yeah.
out there and buy pies. And I believe OpenPLC even runs on Arduinos, which are even less expensive. So for those people out there trying to get the next generation or the really young into it, that's definitely an option. But let me turn it back to you. That's very interesting to see that. Now, and before we go any further, when do you expect this new product to launch?
Yeah, so the SLM-RP4 we're looking at having available a little bit later this year. So should be imminently coming to y'all. The SLM-MX and all of our IO models are available today on synergy-logic.store.
Synergy-logics.store. Okay, and the existing modules work with this new controller,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
so any module that you would have for the SLM-MX will work immediately with that SLM-RP4.
excellent. Okay, great. Well, let me turn it back to you. Thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah. So I think now would be a good time to kind of hop into the demo and start to see how
Okay.
this stuff actually work. Because that's the fun part of this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing we set out to do with the SLMX in particular is make Modbus IO really easy. Because I've used a ton of Modbus devices and it's always a pain of configuring different menus and reading through manuals. So I wanted something that we could just put on the screen and it starts working. So the first thing we did, kind of in that theme, is whenever you want to find your device, you just hit scan for devices on the network. No
Okay.
matter how many of these guys you got around, it'll pop up. Now, something we run into here especially is you see a few of these. I have this one named for us, but maybe it's fresh out of the box. You don't have it. So we have this little identify light. If you look at that,
Oh,
it starts blinking right
nice.
on the MX. So you see that CPU blink like you would in the software. So you know exactly you got the right one. So when you hit connect, you start changing things, you know you're good.
Yeah, so if you're building multiple machines, you just hit identify so you can name each individual one. You know what they are, especially if they were set up for DHCP and got just default IP addresses and so on. So good. Nice.
Exactly. Yeah, out of the box, these guys are DHCP, but
Okay.
it's very easy to go into here, set your
Mhm.
static IP, any of your other network parameters, and some things like, hey, if this gets disconnected from your Modbus network, how do you want to handle that?
Hold last state is important in some critical applications, so that's good. Nice to see that.
Exactly. So you can go in here, you can check these are simple modules, no configuration needed. And now if we wanted to start doing Modbus, all we need to do is go to our mapping tab and we can see each module and the
Mhm.
locations we have. So we have input bits, all the offsets for all these, the next module here. And if you have, let's say, multiple relay modules, it'll automatically list out to the next index. So it does all that math for you. You just need to look at here and reference it.
Hey guys, just want to jump in here really quick and thank Synergy Logic for sponsoring this episode so I can release it to you completely ad-free. If you guys talk to anybody over there, please let them know you appreciate them sponsoring episodes of the Automation Podcast. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump right back into this week's episode.
So at this point, all you need to do is hit configure and it sends it over and you're ready to start writing to this. So we're going to use OpenPLC, but to start, we're not even going to use a actual hardware controller. We're going to be able to run OpenPLC just on your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and start this in the terminal here. When you install this, it automatically starts on your PC on startup for OpenPLC. So this is a
Okay.
great way if you wanted to test out some Modbus I/O or anything.
Mhm.
You don't have your full PLC ready. You just want to get this little remote piece of I/O. Maybe you have some distributed system. You're testing out a portion. This is a great way to get started. So now we have it running on my computer. It's running the old program here. So let's connect to it. We can hit search. We can see here Tech07 is the name of my PC. So we connect to this, type in the super secure username and password. Another great thing about OpenPLC in the age of security here is as soon as you log into the device for the first time, it makes you set a username and password. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be anything too complicated, but it gives you that base level of security at least. That way, if this is sitting on the network, someone can't just randomly connect to it on an open port.
It's important for the users out there who are not aware. SQL Server used to ship with a default SA user and password, and a lot of people were compromised via that default name and password because people were not changing it, and millions of dollars were lost in different facilities over the years, especially in the '90s, early
Mhm.
90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So, I know a lot of people bellyache, why do I have to have a password? Why do I have to do? And I understand that. I'm right there with you, commiserating. But this is like you have to, in this day and age where we have, actors aligned with people who are not friendly to us. Just, looking for open Modbus ports on the internet. We got to have a default user. We gotta be asked to use something besides the default username and password. And I'll turn it back to you, Adam.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right there, Sean. These days, you just have to put a little more effort into there. And it does take a bit more time, but it's worth it just so you don't run into those big issues.
Yep.
But yeah, so hopping into this, so we have the OpenPLC runtime running on my computer, so it's almost acting like a PLC there. So to talk to our SLM-MX, all we need to do is go and add a remote device. I'm going to name SLM-MX, and it is talking Modbus. So we create that here. All we need to do is type in the IP address,
Mhm.
which is right there. And we can start adding our points. So we can hop back to our software here and reference kind of that configuration.
Mhm.
So I want to be turning on and off the red light, which I know is attached to my first coil on this module. So I'm going to go and add a point. So we'll call this red light. And it is a single coil at offset 0. So we can go in here. So this sets the IO point, and we can set an alias, which is kind of like a tag name, if anyone's familiar with that nomenclature. So this
Okay.
is what we're going to use whenever we're writing code. So we can see it does have a hardware address, that QX00 and an offset, all that information, but that's not always meaningful when we're writing our programs. So I'm going to go over to here to my Blink example here. That is, all the languages you can do Blink in.
Mhm.
And you can dig into all these. Like you can see over here, this is just our ladder Blink, which is where I'm going to hook up our red light. So to do that, we just have to add a variable here. Make this a little bit bigger to see. So it'll be red light out. It'll be a bool. And you can see the location from that Modbus address on our SLM-MX called red light automatically pops up there. So we don't have to retype anything, look it up. We know it's right there from when we set it. So now if I wanted that to be driven by this blink every second, I'm just going to grab another output here. I'm going to start typing and it auto completes everything. And just need to zoom in a bit and I can drag that over here.
Mhm.
And now all we have to do is go over here and upload this to our system running. So it'll go through all the compiling steps, everything that you'd normally get on a program in the background, you can see in the console, and then it'll
Yep.
start running.
We can see it in
So
the
now,
overhead camera. We can see the red light's already blinking. Yep.
so this is all running just on my PC here. But like you were talking about, when you're on the actual factory floor, you're in an install, you probably don't want to be running your Windows PC as your control center.
No.
But one of the greatest things about OpenPLC is that flexibility to move between platforms, whether it's an Arduino, testing out on your machine, or trying to get deployed on something like our SLM-RP4 or any edge device, really. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the PC running. And we're going to go and connect to the SLM-RP4. So all we have to do is, instead of going to a generic version, we're going to select the SLM-RP4 and find that on our network here. And hit connect. Let's do our quick username and password login. And I can just go ahead and hit build and upload. And we'll be running that same program we just tested out on this new hardware without any changes.
And I'm going to ask you a question as it's doing that. When the product launches, will I need to install like an identification file or some kind of profile into OpenPLC so it knows about this new product that you've released, this new controller?
Yeah, so there will be a little extension file that describes the OpenPLC device.
Okay.
So in this case, the SLM-RP4. To install one of those, all you have to do is go into, oh goodness, where's the menu I'm looking for? Right up in here, install additional boards. And here you can see we have this package installed. It's the Synergy Logic SLM-RP4. So you just hit add from file, and that's the whole process. And it brings all that in.
Excellent.
Yeah, so now that the upload is done, you can see we have it back to ticking just like we did on our PC version. Didn't have to make any changes to the program, just changing the hardware target we're uploading this to.
That's excellent. And, for you guys who are listening, it's just a simple stack light here, red and green. We're blinking the red light now. That's what we tested blinking with the Modbus TCP IO using OpenPLC on the PC. And now we've downloaded, or in their terminology, uploaded the program to the controller, and now it's controlling the IO. And I think that's easy. I didn't have to type in any 4,000s or 3,000s or 2,000s or any crazy numbers like that. The way you went through that process was very easy to actually implement. So I really like that. Um, is there anything else you want to show us about this product?
Yeah, so one great thing about moving to an actual hardware platform like the SLM-RP4 is we can start adding in local I/O too. So
Okay.
we talked about the MX, all the flavors of I/O there work the same on the RP4, but now you can have it local to your control system. So what happens when you add in a device like the RP4 here? Um, when you add in that package, it describes all the modules and how to talk to them locally from the runtime. So if we go to our backplane configuration tab, you can see we have this module added in, or you could scroll down and select any of them we offer and all the flavors. And you go ahead and you can get the same IO mapping tab where you get your IEC addresses, but you can do aliases as well. So we're going to do green light on this one so we know what it's controlling later on in our program. So now that we have our IO mapped, the same way we did it on the remote IO with the MX, we can do with local IO. So we'll call this green light out. And you can see it auto-populates the same way with our green light on the right
Mhm.
module. So we're going to have this one blink every 3 seconds by connecting to our function block diagram blink over here. You see we have it hard-coded to 3. Autocomplete to green light out there. Wire it in. And now we will build and upload.
And so the red light is wired to the distributed IO. The green light is wired to the local IO. So, we did the distributed IO first. Now we're doing the local IO. And, one of the things I noticed here is, a lot of PLCs, we don't build the variable table in the routine or in the program or, the code. But in a lot of PLCs you do, and that's where you build it. And I know that's a big thing with code systems. That's kind of the preferred way of doing it, right? And whether it's in a table view or just a text view, you'll have all those routines in there.
And you
I'm
can,
sorry. You'll have
oh,
all
sorry
those
to interrupt you.
variables.
If
You'll
you
have all
like
those
the
variables in
text
there.
view as well,
Okay.
you can always go to the text view and get those sort of variable definitions.
All right. So you can switch back and forth here using those icons on the top right. Yeah. Which is, I think most people who've used other controllers that do this will be familiar with that look and feel. Yep.
Yeah, so that's all I have in terms of demo for you today.
Can you go ahead and put it in monitor mode? I saw the light blinking every 3 seconds, and now we're monitoring the code, and we can see the code changing. So, would you mind showing us your webpage where we're going to find all the information about these products?
Yeah, so to find any information about our products, you can go to synergy-logic.com. That's our main page. And to get all the details on everything, go ahead and hit that Buy Now button to hop over to our store, where you can see all of the modules we have to offer, all the densities, input ranges, anything you need is here, along with data sheets and any sort of listings.
And again, these are designed for industrial environments. This isn't like the 5-volt stuff you're going to buy if you're shopping, the classroom Raspberry Pi products or the hobby stuff. This is all industrial products, and your company has a long history of producing these products for many years and decades. And you guys are like the engine underneath a lot of products as well. But this is your very own line that you guys are selling, and it looks great. So let me go ahead and give you the last word, Adam.
The SLM-MX is out today along with all of our SLM-IO modules. So if you're looking for a good Modbus IO, especially if you need high density for your remote systems or a lot of distributed setups, it is the perfect tool to drop in there and be super easy to use. And then to follow on that, we have that SLM-RP4 coming up at the end of the year here for all of your control or edge device needs. Um, if you have any questions about our products or want to learn more, hop on the website, like I said, synergy-logic.com, and feel free to reach out over phone or over email there if you have any questions for us.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Adam. Thank you for giving us that demo too. It's always great learning how to use new products and see new software. So I hadn't seen the OpenPLC for a while, so it was nice for you to walk us through that as well. And just thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Shawn.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Adam for coming on the show and bringing us up to speed on their Modbus TCP IO, as well as their new controller that's coming out later this year. I also want to thank Synergy Logic for sponsoring this episode so I could release it to you completely ad-free. I also want to thank our members, whether you're a member at theautomationblog.com or on YouTube. I want to thank you for supporting my work. Don't forget, there's a brand new episode of The Automation Show for members that released talking about my trip to Automate. So I think you guys will find that interesting. With that said, I want to wish all of you good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.